China and Australia have come to terms on a landmark free trade agreement ending a decade of negotiations. Chinese President Xi Jinping and Australian Prime Minister Tony Abbott signed the deal on Monday. The deal is said to be worth billions of dollars to the Australian economy. CCTV's Rowie Rettenberg is live for us in Canberra with the details. Rowie.
Indeed, and $18 billion to be exact, according to some of the latest estimates we're seeing here, that the deal will include the removal of all sorts of tariffs. Now, before the deal was actually signed, Xi Jinping spoke before the Australian Parliament. He's here in Australia for his fifth visit, the first as president, and he's only the second Chinese leader to ever speak before a joint session of the Parliament here. Hu Jintao spoke more than 10 years ago, and he used his speech as an opportunity to not just lay out what he thinks is China's vision for growth, but also to praise this new level of cooperation.
The extraordinary journey of bilateral relationship over the last 42 years demonstrates that as long as our two sides treat each other with mutual respect, properly handle our differences, we can ensure steady and great progress of our two countries.
Now, Xi Jinping was warmly welcomed here at the Parliament. He was introduced by Tony Abbott, who really needed this deal for his government. Tony Abbott has made foreign policy one of the premier focuses of his agenda since taking office more than a year ago. The deal also it's said it will help the Australian economy by giving it access to more than a market of more than 1 billion people in China, and that's good news for Australia, which over the last 5 years has seen China become the largest recipient of Australian exports. Xi Jinping also used his speech to touch on some other issues, including China's rising role in the region, and he called on countries around the world to work together. He said this is necessary for a win-win approach. It might be slower, but in the end, countries like China and Australia can succeed, even if it's slower if they work together. The FTA Australia is saying will benefit lots of different sectors, including farmers here in Australia and some of the dairy farmers, and we've taken the time to speak to some of the people who will benefit from this. This is one of Australia's dairy farms, 2,000 cows in total. They're all housed in so-called freestall barns. The technique is usually more expensive, but the farm's owners say the better environment means twice the amount of milk per cow is produced. Michael Parrish says it was the right investment.
So we're the same, so more output for the same fixed cost will help dilute it.
Some of the demand is now coming from China, the world's largest importer of dairy. There, Australian milk retails at more than 5 times the price compared to shelves back home. But that doesn't necessarily spell more profit per bottle sold.
And it has to go through quite a serious customs clearance process, and then it has to be put into cold warehouses around the country, and it has to go through distribution aid to China. So really, just when you add all those things up, that's where you get to the very high prices within the China market.
Wolson is hoping a new free trade agreement between China and Australia will both reduce export costs and expand the market, ultimately increasing the volume of milk sold. And he expects sales to double annually as China's thirst for high-quality milk grows. Australian dairy still represents just a small portion of the total milk sold in China, but it's a portion that's slowly increasing as more and more Chinese mothers see the milk coming from here as a safe and healthy option, and changing trends in China could mean changing realities in Australia. Over the last decade, dairy production in Australia has dropped by 25% as farmers saw profits shrinking. A boom in demand from China, some predict, could encourage those who quit to start milking again. And that may change the industry.
It'll have to adjust on a range of levels. The first level is in the manufacturing level. We need to attract investment in manufacturing, particularly around products like infant formula. Those really high demand products. But then once that happens, we need to expand our production base.
Just how much it'll expand depends on China, with all eyes now on that free trade agreement. And on Monday night, the Chinese leader was hosted at an official state dinner here in Canberra. Some of those in attendance were various industry leaders, including from the dairy industry.
And Rowie, obviously both sides couldn't get everything that they wanted. What were some of the gaps?
Absolutely, and what they're saying here, this is a negotiation. You can't simply get everything that you've got your eyes set on. The Australians wanted to see some of the export goods like sugar, cotton, wheat, and rice be included in part of that deal. Farmers growing those will be disappointed with this FTA. China wanted to see they're the best deal we could have gotten. It appears, based on the comments that we heard following the signing, both leaders gave a press conference that they were pleased with the results.
All right, CCTV's Roy Rettenberg live for us in Canberra.